turn the desktop audio down just a smidge here. It's kind of blaring me out there. Um, Hello everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Um, we may or may not get a few folks in here. Doesn't matter. This is going to be recorded. Uh, Hopefully you can like, share, subscribe. There's another thing that you can do. You can go to Facebook and you can like Code Black. Check that out. It's a great collaborative of technology, people of color, business, you name it. It's out there. It's fledgling. It's growing. The guy who's in charge of it, D, shout out to him. You can also subscribe to my channel over here that you're watching. And so we'll go ahead, get started. If I get any Slack questions as we go, I'll try to answer those questions as soon as possible. So I've got Slack going in the background in the Code Black Tech. So today we are going over classes. So yesterday we kind of went over keywords. We wrote a quick little Hello World program, and we've got the program here. I'm on a different computer in my bedroom this time. Last time I was downstairs. So let's go ahead and get started with today's lesson. So yesterday, what we did was we talked in just kind of broad terms about keywords in C#. Now, most programming languages have specific keywords that you can't use as variable names or class names or anything like that. So we went over some of those yesterday. I'm just going to kind of regurgitate a little bit what we said yesterday. Abstract, const, override, some of these are keywords that you can't use. Also, we have that. We talked a little bit about access modifiers. Now that I keep saying we talked about that video, I have to upload. It'll be uploaded here probably tonight. So you'll kind of get some context of what we're talking about. But we kind of demonstrated a little bit. Let me go back over this just a little bit about access modifiers. Public, private, internal, protected. Those are access modifiers for your code. They limit how people can use your code. They think of it like a peephole on a door, where you can look out of the peephole and you can determine who's going to be able to open up the door, or who can even look in the peephole, or who can even see that there's a door there. So you've got that. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday because we created a class with some access modifiers there. We talked about statements that were related to program flow. If, else, switch, case, do, for each, in. A lot of these you use inside of code blocks. And we talked a little bit about that. Here's an if condition right here. We talked about method parameter keywords like params, ref, out. I used out here using a try parse, where I'm taking a string and I'm casting it to a numeric value. We talked about namespace keywords. Namespaces being different classes that you can reference that use you can use the code inside of those classes if you reference the namespace. So we talked about how the system namespace is a namespace with classes inside of it, same as system.text. We talked about that. Operator keywords, as, is, size of, type of. I think I use type of in a condition here. Access keywords based in this, that's for classes. And then you usually see those in drawing a blank. You usually see those when you're inheriting from one class to another and you create what's called a constructor. We'll go over that another time. Literal keywords like null, false, true, value, void. We can see that we have a method here that is a void method. Voids don't return anything, but you have a string down here, no, this is a method. You have a method down here that returns types right here. We talked about types, and I just used types. So these are types. They're the type of variable, the type of data that you're looking at, whether it be a string, an integer, a 32-bit integer, a 64-bit integer, an 8-bit integer, bytes, chars, decimals, you name it. We talked about contextual keywords, add var. Var is something that you'll see quite often. A great example of var is when you're using var, when you don't know what the type of the variable is going to be when you get it. So you use var, and whatever you stick in there, var will determine the type of data that it is, and it'll cast, or it'll cast that variable in the right form. So like for example, if I have, like I got a water bottle here, right? So if I had, if water was a type, need some more water. If water was a type and I had soda in another bottle and I didn't know which one you're going to hand me, and I said var bottle, then I could hand this bottle to you and it will determine that there's water in there, and it'll automatically cast it and say, yep, I know that's a type of water. If it was soda, it'd say, I know that if I use var, it's a type of soda. All right. Query keywords for link queries. I used a little bit of link pad yesterday. Link is another namespace. I use it all the time. I love it. It can be a little bit memory intensive, so you have to be very careful when you use it. Yeah, and so we kind of went over those things. So today we're going to talk about classes. So I'm going to click next here. We're going to talk about classes. What are a class? What is a class? Well, classes, and I'm just going to read there. Classes are a blueprint of a specific object. So it has an example here. In the real world, every object has some color, a shape, and a function. For example, we're talking about cars. A luxury car Ferrari. Ferrari is an object of the luxury car type. The luxury car is a class that indicates some characteristics like speed, color, shape, interior, etc. So any company that makes a car that meets those requirements is an object of the luxury car type. So for example, every single car of BMW, Lamborghini, Cadillac can be of the class luxury car, the luxury car class, and every single physical car is an object of the luxury car class. It's kind of a really complex way to look at it. Here's a great way to look at it. We're going to use our good friend Google, and we're going to use I think it's the color, person class, C#. Okay. Let's go over here to MSDN. And I won't talk about reference types yet. I don't want to confuse you. So I'm trying to look for the example here. Here's a great example right here. A couple of great examples. Let's copy this code. You'll find that I go to MSDN quite often. And then since this is a class in its own, it's already using system, so we won't include the system there. But we will grab all of this right here. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this my calculator class here. I'm going to get a reference error up here because my calculator no longer exists. Let's just go ahead and just clear this all out of here. So we can just start fresh here. So I'm going to empty function there with a class. I'll paste that in there. Okay. Now, what is a class? Well, let's break this down this way. you have a class called person. I'm a person. Okay. Don't worry about the constructor yet. So every person has characteristics about themselves, right? Let's just build it out here so we can see. I need to get rid of that anyway. Okay. So every person has characteristics about themselves. Let's name some of those characteristics. Okay. A person has height. I'm gonna use a shortcut here. Every person has weight. Because you can get height. I won't include weight. You can inherit your height from your parents, right? So we've got height. We've got hair color. Eye color. And gender. Ooh. Okay. So what happens is this is a person who has 4 attributes about them. And instead of calling it person, let's call it parent. Parents. Okay, so parents have height, hair color, eye color, and gender. Those are things that you can inherit from your parents. Okay, let's go back to that definition of a class. A class defines some properties. These are properties. Fields. So let's make a couple of fields. Not gender. I'll call this race. And let me phone a friend here. What is something else that you inherit from your parents? I I have eye color, height, hair color, gender, race, and what else? A physical attribute. No. Excuse me. Weight is not something that you can inherit. Um, Another trait. Freckles? Is freckles a common one? Okay, I use freckles. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Phone a friend successful. Okay, um, so you have these things that you can. So again, going back to it, a class has properties. So we've got some properties here. These are properties. These are fields, variables. Okay. Events. Events would be handlers. Something that handles logging to a log on the computer somewhere. I won't create a handler. Okay. Methods. We talked about methods. Public. Okay. So this class, this parents class, has all of these properties, these fields, and this method. Okay. All right. So a class defines the kinds of data and the functionality that their objects will have. So all of these properties and fields and methods are objects of the parent's class. Okay, so all parents have these things that are common to them. Okay, now a class enables you to create your custom types by grouping variables of other types, methods, and events. Okay, so I can create more than one parent. So let's just make myself here. So let's see, father. Let's call this pops. All right. And we'll make one called mother. Moms. Okay. Now, since parents each have different individual traits. For example, my wife is slightly taller than I am. My father-in-law is a darker complexion than my mother-in-law, right? Um, my my mother is shorter than everybody else in the family, basically, but my father was tall. So I'm going to use my attributes in these properties and fields and my wife's. So I'm going to put height. So what I can do, since this is a property that, and actually let's use what we talked about yesterday. We're going to use these as privates here. Private. No. We'll put these as privates here. Ooh. These are private. And these will be private. And you'll see what I'm going to do here. Because I'm going to limit access to these attributes here. The only thing that the person will be able to see is this right here. Okay, so since those are private, I'm going to put something in front of them to identify that they are private here. Okay. Copy those. Copy those. All right. Now I'm going to make these public. Okay. Get rid of the underscore here, which makes them different. Okay. Now, there's a way that I can take these strings up here, and actually, instead of me making them properties, let's make them actual strings. I can do it this way here. Let's see, height. Get rid of these right here. Race. Freckles. Alright. Alright, so I've created all of these variables right here in this class. Now there's another way to do these properties. That's the easy way. Okay. And you see it creates a private up here. So this is going to be your, I've already got my strings up here. And I'm going to make height a string variable, a string property. And this is going to be height. Return my var. Okay. Oh, uppercase height. There we go. All right. Now I can get rid of this one here. So what this does, the way I did it this way, is I'm going to do something specific with this height here. I can preset this height to what I determine it to be. I can do something down here in the method that messes around with the height. But what's going to happen is the person who sees these properties won't be able to change these values because I've restricted access to these values using an access modifying keyword right here. So let's go back to the class. So what I'm doing in this class right now is I've created a class with methods, properties, and variables. Okay, the variables are restricted access. The properties, once I get these all done, are going to have a specific kind of access to them. And then finally, the methods will be public. There's something called an interface that you can use as well that kind of takes care of some of this as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead, and when you're doing any kind of coding like this, your friend is keyboard shortcuts. So watch this. Hair color there, hair color there, and your bye-bye. Copy that. Eye color. Okay. Gender. Same thing for race. Race and race. Now, with the freckles here, we're going to take this and say Boolean. We're going to make that a Boolean. And let's do something similar. Now, what we want to do is do some condition here and say if underscore contains yes, then we want to return, and actually let me do it this way. All right, and I say if has freckles, we'll say this true. and say like that. It's got to be a bool. Set move has freckles up here. Actually, I had to take it out of there. I gotta put it up here. Okay, has freckles equals true. We do the same thing I did there. Underscore. 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 Freckles equals value. Alright, there we go. And I can get rid of this one here. Clean that up a little bit. Okay. So what did I do here? Since Boolean values can either be true, can only be true or false, unless you create a null value there, a nullable value, we want to always return a true or false. Okay. So if freckles contains yes or no, or it just contains a yes, then what's going to happen is it's going to make this. Oh, I was told to slow down. I'm going too fast. Okay, I'm going to slow down some. Post in the chat what you want me to go back over. So let me back up here for a second. What I'm doing is I'm creating properties inside of a class that I can inherit in a child class. Our class is called parents. When I make a child class, I'm going to call it child. Let's just go ahead and call it child. Children. Okay. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm making properties that will either, because a property, you can get a property, set a property, or you can program a property to either give you a value or allow you to set a value. Okay. Now, on the freckles one, since it can only be true or false, what I'm doing is I'm creating code that once I pass in a parameter into my method that checks to see whether or not the person's father or mother has freckles or not, I can set the value of my property based on what I've passed into the method. You'll see it when I put the code on there. It's a lot easier to kind of follow then. But I had to initialize my properties so we can get that out of the way. So we've got our properties set for our parents here. Okay, now what we can do is we can inherit from the parents class and use properties and methods from the parents class and the children's class. Now we still have to do something with the two methods out here. Okay, so let's do something with that. So let's say now we talked a little bit about access modifiers. Let me go back over that real quick. Access modifiers, again, will lock down your code. and it'll keep you from having code be exposed that you don't want it to be. Okay. Right now, the only thing that people can see in my code here, even though they can inherit from their parents' class, are the height, the hair color, that kind of stuff. Anything I do with this stuff up here, they'll never see it. Now, my methods can access it. So like, watch this. That's Freckles, right? But if I inherit, and to inherit a class from a parent class, you just type colon, and you type the name of that class that you're inheriting from. Parents, like that. Now I can see anything that's set up to be public. I can reference that. Let's say I want to say Freckles, right? You see that Freckles is there. Or let's say I want to look at height. And this is in the actual parent class. Let's do this in the children class. And since we're inheriting from parents class, I can say, oh, how do I do that? There's multiple ways to do it. Here, I'm inheriting from the parents class. So what I can do, Visual Studio has this really quick, cool thing that if you right-click on it and you say Quick Actions and Refactorings, what you can do is you can create a constructor in here, or I can say, that's the other one I can use here. Let's see. How do I want to do this? Okay. I always forget the syntax for this. Well, let's go Google it real quick. And then classes here. So you can do it this way, where you're just let me do it that way. It's a lot easier to explain. Okay. I'm going to create an object of the parents class in my children's class. Okay, now this is different from inheritance, but let me go to an example of inheriting. C#. Let's see here. C# inheritance. There's a specific syntax that you have to use for it here. So in C# you have base classes and you have the derived classes. The base class is the parent class. Derived class is the child class, right? So let's see, car name, model name, car, my car, new car, my car, honk. Okay. I won't do it that way. I don't want to confuse the matter. Okay, so I'm getting myself a little confused. I don't explain this too often. All right, so let me go ahead and do this the easy way. So to create a new object of our base class or our parent class, you can come over here in your child class and you can say parents, my parents equals, that's the assignment operator, new parents. Okay, now I can do that because our parents class that we created is a class that I can inherit from. It's not a static class that, you know, you can't inherit, you can't create a new, you can't instantiate a new instance or object of a static class. So here we go. Now that I have this my parents object of this parents class, now I can reference any of the accessible methods and properties and variables that are in the parents class. So if I type my parents dot, what did I do? Oh, you know, it's got to be inside of a method. Public void some method. Now I can do that. Actually, to be clear, we'd want to do it this way. And say my parents equals new parents. Okay, thank you. So now that I've got this my parents object that I've inherited from the parents class from, I can type my parents dot, and you can see I've got the hair color, the height, the two methods that we have for moms and pops, the race, eye color, freckles, and gender. Now, mind you, the freckles property, we can either put something in it or get something from it because it's a property, right? It's not a variable, it's a property. And variables are different from properties. Now, if I go over here, that's what this get and this set does for properties. If I'm getting the height, I'm returning whatever's in there. So this underscore height is going to contain whatever I have in it at the time of runtime, and it'll just hold on to that value as I go through unless I clear it out with a set. This is passing. So think of it this way: set is passing in, get is bringing out. Somebody is calling me. This is my daughter here. Y'all will love this. Let's see. Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Would we?
I'm listening.
Go ahead. Okay. Would we be able to spend the night? Like, would it be a possibility if we could spend the night at Nikki's new apartment?
That's fine by me. Honey, can they spend the night at Nikki's new apartment?
That's fine.
See?
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
If they misbehave, put them out. Just tell just
Can walk home.
they can walk home.
Oh yeah.
They just down y'all just down the street.
Absolutely.
They just need to come get some clothes and their stuff from fresh.
I didn't already made them walk home like 5 times.
Oh, hey, that works for me. That works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Awesome.
stop by and then just get some stuff for them.
Okay.
Okay.
Will do.
Alrighty. We'll see y'all in a bit.
Okay.
All right, and bye-bye.
Bye.
I was live streaming that whole thing, by the way. Okay. So, back to what I was saying. So, setting a property is putting something into the property or into the value that the property is referencing. So, when you set a property, you're actually setting this hair color variable to whatever you're passing into it. So, let me do that down here. So, down here in my derived class, or my child class, I'm going to set freckles to yes or true. Okay? Because it's a Boolean value. So if you go back up to the freckles, we're in this set. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take whatever I pass in as this value to this has freckles variable right here. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm setting freckles to true, which is going to come up here. It's going to take that value that I've passed into freckles, which is a true because it's a Boolean, it can only be true, false. And I'm going to set this has freckles, which I defined up here, which is a variable in this class, to true. Okay? Now, when I do that, if I reference freckles down in this moms or pops method, I can do something specific with it. Okay? I'm not going to do that real quick, but I'm just kind of giving you an idea. And that same rings for if I do a get. If I do a get on the freckles instead of a set, so I can say, let's say if I get the value for freckles. If my parents.freckles, then I can do something. So what this does, this says, hey, give me the value of the freckles property in the parents class. That's this get part that I just did here. So what it's going to do, and I have a condition in here that looks for whatever I am using this variable for. So if this freckles string contains a yes, then I can pass this to, I can pass true to freckles. If not, it's just going to return whatever's in there, right? So either way, if it's got a false or true, it should return one of the two. The same idea lies true for all these other properties up here that reference variables. You pass something in, you're setting the variable behind the scenes. You do a get, you're getting what's in that variable, and you're bringing it in to do something with it or to use it somehow in your code. Okay. And so let's go into this pops method here. All right, so I'm going to use myself as an example here. I'm going to set the height, hair color, eye color, gender, race. I don't have freckles, obviously. And then I'm going to leave that at there. So let's do that real quick. So I'm going to say height, and it's going to be underscore height equals 66 inches tall. Hair color. Well, if you just heard the conversation we had, gray. Now you know why it's gray. Okay. We've got eye color. I have brown eyes. My headset is acting up here. Gender. And I'm a male. Okay, man, I need to get a new headset. Race. Black. I'm just gonna say black. And I'm gonna say freckles equals no. I'll just put lowercase no. Okay. All right. I'm going to copy all of this. Paste it in for Mama. She's 67 inches tall. No whole inch, right? Hair color is... She said careful. Black. She's got brown eyes. She's a female. She's black, and she does not have freckles either. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and say, if I call this moms up here, so I come up here and I say, my parents' moms. And I'll do the same thing for my parents' pops. And let's see, it's not doing anything there. I'm going to debug this right here. And then up in my public class here, my children's class, we'll make that public just for grins. And in my main, I'm going to say the chillins. Okay. Now, you can see that I am now able to inherit from another class, which is a child class, and I can call this some method here and do something with it. And here's our sum method here. All right. Now, let me go ahead and debug this. And let's see what happens here. And we'll step through our code here. Lord willing, this thing works the right way. All right. Okay. Now we're debugging. So we've got a new children, an object of the children class. If I hit F11 here, it goes into my children's class. And now if I hit F11 here, now I'm in the parents class. And I've called the method which is in the parents class. And I can set all of these variables there. Now if I come up here and hover over my parents, let's see. You can see up here that in my parents that eye color is brown, freckles is false, gender is male, hair color is gray, height 66 inches, and race is black, right? So let me stop this because those are the public properties there. Now, if I come up here and I can say inherit from parents, like such, man, my headset's acting up, y'all. Now, if I come over here and I can say the chillins, notice because I now am inheriting down here. Y'all hold on for 1 second here. I've got some major uh, issues with my sound here. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. Hopefully y'all can see me now again. Let me double check that. That was kind of, gotta get a new wireless headset. Double check can y'all see me on the live stream, whoever's watching? There we go. Okay. Just had to make sure I was back up and running here. All right. Sorry about that, y'all. A little technical difficulty here. All right. So what we were gonna do before I was so rudely interrupted by technology, um, what I did was I inherited all of these attributes, the public ones, from the um, parents class and my children's class. Okay. Now, what I can do is up here in my main static class up here. This is a completely different class. We're talking 3 classes here. Okay. What I can do, and actually I can do that up here, as a matter of fact, I believe so. It's a static class. Yeah, I can do that here. Parents, like that. And actually, instead of doing that, do this. No, I'll leave it like that. All right. Let's see what happens here. The chillins. Oh, actually, it'll be this, that, height. No, I will have to do it that way. I'm trying to get too high speed, y'all. Like this. Okay. Now, basically what I'm doing here, let's call this set properties. We'll come back up here. Okay. Now, since I've created a new, I'm deriving, or I've created a new object of that class in my main program class up here. The chillins, hair color, and I can let's just output these and see what the values are. Right line, the chillins, hair color. I can say hair color is eye color is height is, say height, gender, and race, and does this person have freckles? And freckles, which is a Boolean. Okay. Now, when we go through this, what should happen is we should get nothing in these values. They should just be empty values, right? These will be empty, and this should be a false. Let's see what happens. Oh. And we've got a null reference exception. We'll get to that in a minute because I did that purposefully. Okay. Now, let me add another condition to this. If freckles string.empty is null empty, and there we go. That'll work. The reason I got that error is because that value had nothing in it. It was a null value. So I think I said in a previous video, null is something that can be passed into a property or method if it's set up to. String is a nullable type. So since I was trying to reference it and it was null, that's why it wasn't working. So what's happening is, if I come back over here, you can see, like I said before, our hair color, all of these are blank, and we have a false here, right? Because it's not set. They're initialized to nothing right now. But if I take this, let's just copy this, do it again, and then what's going to happen is no. Now, put an empty line in there. Okay. And at the end of this, I'm going to put console right line like I did here. Put a couple of empty there, and I'll say here, press any key to continue. And then instead of this being a write, read key, which is going to expect a key press, and then it'll exit my code here. So I can take the breakpoint off right now. Now, let's go ahead and hit F5 and see what happens here. So we have our breakpoint here. I'm just going to go ahead and just go through this. And now we have no value there because I didn't set it. Okay, so what did I need to do? Well, what I needed to do was call either the moms or the pops method to do that. And I can do that instead of here. I can do that here instead now that I can say the chillins pops. And what this line does, this will set this sets all of our attributes below to the father's attributes. That's what it should do. So I really don't need this here anymore. It's just kind of a blase, you know. We can do something with it later, but I'm just trying to show you something here. Okay, so now if I hit F5, you can see now we've got actual values in our properties, and our freckles is false. So this set all of that information to me. Okay, and I can hit F, I can enter, and it'll just continue on here. Now, let's say I want to do that with mom, or I can say it down here, dad. Do the same thing here with my right lines here. Copy this. And instead of this being dad, I'll put this as moms. And in between here and here, I'm going to call the chillins moms. And that sets it to mom's attributes, right? Okay. What did I hear? Okay. So now what's going to happen is we should have three sets of printout here. A blank one, mine, and then my wife's, and then the press any key to continue. So let's see what happens here. There it is. So we can see mom's hair color is that. Her height 67 inches. She's female. She's black. She doesn't have freckles either. And so on and so forth, right? So that is how methods and classes kind of work. Let's go back to our keywords, not our keywords, but our class stuff here. Okay, so that's what you can do with a class. Okay, you can group variables of other types, methods, and events. If you create a class, it's going to have a specific usage. Okay, it's going to be used for a specific purpose. Okay, it's not going to you're not going to intermix a bunch of different stuff in there. So when you look at Microsoft, what they do is up here, if I go to the string class and I look at that class, then what's going to happen is all of these variables and methods that are in the string class, what they do is they deal with nothing but strings. You're not going to have a bunch of intermixed stuff that has to do with math and numbers in this class. So your classes are going to have a specific purpose. Okay. So you have to, when you're creating a class, you have to be mindful of what you're doing in the class. Okay. You use a class, or you can define a class by using a class keyword, as we saw in our examples here. And obviously what I did here. Okay. Now let's go over some of the modifiers, and we've kind of done that a little bit here. Our access modifier allows us to be able to either access or restrict access to our class. So if I come in here and instead of making this a public, I say private, I'm going to get some errors up here because now this main class up here, this program class, can no longer access any of these classes down here. The parents class and then the children's class won't be able to access it either because it's private. So that's what an access modifier does. There's ways around that. You can use interfaces, and I don't want to confuse interfaces right now, but we'll talk about that in another video. You've got your class name right here. Remember, it can't be a keyword. In this example, they have a field in that class. They have constructor. What is a constructor? Do I want to talk about that now? Let's see if they could talk about constructors in here. Yeah, let's talk about it real quick. Okay, what is a constructor? Well, what a constructor does, every class has a default constructor. Okay, it initializes your class and it does something to get your class ready once it's accessible. Okay, so let's say in this children class, let's minimize this here. Let's say in this children class that I want to preset all of my variables or all of my properties in the parents class. So let's do that real quick. Okay, so I can say I'll just make a constructor. This is the default constructor. Okay, now let's say I want to set the my parent stuff in there. Height equals 0. It's a string, Alex. Okay, let's just do those two real quick. Now, when I come over here, let me hit F5 again. What should happen is, when I hit F10 here, uh-oh, I've got a no reference exception because my parents is not set to um, um, it's null. So whenever you instantiate an object of a class, you have to initialize it with the minimum of what that class is, and that's the default constructor. So to do that, I need to put this on there equals new my parents. New parents. Alex, come on. Basically what I was doing down here. Now let's re-debug this. F10. Now, if I come up here to chillins, because the two that I set were height and gender. Height and gender, now gender's null. Where'd you go? I guess I could probably do it a different way. Oh, you know why? Because I am inheriting from parents. That's why. Um, so let's make a couple of different variables here that are accessible. Okay, so let's say um, default with a string. So string default height equals string.empty. And then because this is a class variable, all right. So my parents' height. Let's say I'm gonna make this 0 here and 0 here, and then I can say equals this dot default height, this gender. Let's see what that does. Now you see up here, we've got this default gender here and this default height. And if you look in this, the chillins, which is what I'm getting from my child class from my parent class, so it's a derived class of derived class. You can see that my parents also set the freckles to the gender to 0 and the height to 0 in there as well. So basically what I did was I took this right here and I set that to 0 and that to 0 based on these right here. Okay. You can also pass things into a default constructor, but I'm not going to do that here. Again, I don't want to confuse everybody here, so I'm just going to do it this way, like we had it. Okay, let's go back to our doc. All right, so we talked about constructor real briefly. Talked about methods and functions. Okay, a method is something that's going to return a void. It's kind of a gray area there, right? You hear a lot of terminology intermixed when you're talking about stuff like this, but methods are pieces of code that aren't going to return anything. A function is a method that returns a value, a type of value. So, like for example, if I come down here, instead of this being a void, I can say set properties. I can actually set this to parents like this, and I can say return my parents, something like this, right? And so what's going to happen is, let's say I say string well, instead of string, let's say byte, and let's say type parent type. If type equals 1, else do something else. My parents pops my parents moms. Actually, we need to flip-flop that because moms is always first. Pops. Okay. And let's see what happens when I uncomment this here. And then up here, I can pass in the chillins set properties 1. And let's see if this actually sets, we'll put it right here. Let's see if this actually sets it to mom's stuff. So we're gonna debug this, and we can hover over here. Nope, there's nothing there. And the reason why is because we're not moving the values over there. But if we look over here in the chillins, we've got that information here, right? So what I can do, since this set properties is a parents class, or it's returning a class of parents, I can say var dot, that's not right, var child info equals the chillins. All right. And instead of doing this, I can say child info and replace that with this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Now, come down here, run that again. Now I should have values in there. It's black, brown, height, gender, race, and freckles. You see, I don't have to call this numerous times. So what I've done is I've refactored this code here. That's a term. Okay. So I can get rid of all the other stuff. And I've made this code more efficient by changing a couple of lines here and there. So I'm using my set properties, and I know what kind of property that I'm setting. This is one is for mom. I'll just put that there. 1 equals mom. 2 equals dad. Okay. Then, if I want to make this even more interactive, then what I can do is I can pass in an argument from my main method. So let me go back here because I don't want to, I'm getting way too ahead of myself here. Auto implemented property, which is what we did before. These are properties, and you recognize these. This is what we did here. Access modifiers for the class. We talked about that. We can make this a public class or a private class, whatever. Excuse me. Fields are variables that hold values. They should have a private access modifier. Excuse me. They're used with the property, and that's what we did in our parents class here. A constructor can have parameterized or parameterless constructors in the class. It will be called when you create an instance of a class. And like I said, every class has a default constructor that looks just like this. Okay. So if you don't have a constructor in your class, I mean, you do. It just is running behind the scenes. When you say this is basically the same thing as saying this down here. This is the same thing. Okay, let's go back up, and then we'll finish this kind of lesson here. So we talked about methods. Um, Methods have an access modifier, a return type, the name of the method, and parameter type and name. And that's this example here. We talked about properties a little bit, actually a lot, so I won't go over that. Now, you have auto-implemented properties, which is just a really fast way of creating a property on the fly. And that's what I was doing at first. Now, the cool thing about Visual Studio is there's all kind of little snippets of code snippets that you can do to make it real fast to create something. So watch this. If I say prop, that gives me the code snippet for automatically implemented properties. If I hit tab a couple of times, it'll do it for me. So right, if I wanted to have a property called my property and it was an integer, I ain't gotta do nothing else. That's it. Right? There's also other ones on here. You have A for an attached dependency property. Prop. You have one for a dependency property. You have a full one, that's one I use down below. And you have one that has with the get and a private set, like this. Okay. Now let's go back. Namespace. So I was going to talk about namespaces. The namespace is a container for all of your classes that are related to one another and other namespaces. It's also used to give unique names to classes within the namespace name. They're represented using a dot. Okay. So in C Sharp, a namespace can be defined using the namespace keyword. When you open up Visual Studio and you create a new program and you give it a name, it will automatically create a namespace for you. Okay. So, and that's what that does right there. And then it talks about how the fully qualified class name of my class is C# tutorials dot my class. So ours is hello world dot program. So if I created another class outside of this class, or this namespace I should say, to reference this particular class, I'd have to come up here and say using hello world dot program. Okay. And I can actually just do that real quick. Let's just make another class. Add class. And I'll just call it dummy class. Something like that. Now, up it's but I'm still in the hello world namespace. Okay, so let me get rid of that. Delete this. Yep. Uh-oh. Yeah, so I just did something really bad here. I just deleted my solution, y'all. Well, that's gonna be the end of this lesson, and that's real fast. Anyway, um, yeah, I just whacked all of that code. So basically, though, a namespace. I wonder if I've never had to do this before. This is why I use Git. This is why I use source control. Yep. Had I had this in Git, I could have reverted my changes here. So basically, if I wanted to make another class, what I could do, well, I guess I got that class over there. I blew it away. Um, if I wanted to make a separate class, I've got this namespace over here. And what I can do is I can just say program. I just get rid of, I can just come over here and say static void main string args. and I can recreate what I just deleted. I'm not gonna do all of that because it's on video. So let me go ahead and wow, I can't believe I did that. So I can recreate this if I so chose to. But what I was trying to do, gosh, I can't believe I did that. Add a class, another dummy class. I wasn't paying attention when I was doing, y'all. Here's what I was trying to do. Delete that. Create a new project. Add project. Wow, Alex. Okay. And I'll just make another console app. I'll say another project. Wow. And we've got another project over here. Show all files. Now if I come over here and I come up here and I say using hello world. Oh, I have to make a reference to it. So over here in my dependencies, I can say add project reference. And there's my hello world. Say okay. So now I've got this reference over here for my hello world. And if I come up here and I say using hello world, I'm gonna make it public here. Let me rebuild this. It's probably gonna blow up because I deleted that doggone. Okay, let's try it again. Using hello world.program. Using hello world, I should say. Now down here, I can say hello world program equals new hello world program. And that's referencing the hello world program. I should say program. This. I probably would give it a different name. My hello world. We'll call this class pre-program or something like that. Pre. Okay. And if I hit that, it's a static hello. But the gist is there. This would go a lot easier had I not deleted my code here. Okay, so that's kind of the end of what we're going to do today. Tomorrow, we're going to go over variables, C# variables of specific data types. This is when, and we'll probably get into implicit and explicit type variables as well, just kind of a high level. So in the next video, that's what we'll do. Our daughter just came in here, so I got to finish that phone conversation I had with him. So until next time, if you have any questions, like I said, Code Black is the place. We have a Slack channel over there. Like us on Facebook. You can subscribe to my channel if you so choose to. Until next time, God bless. And I hope this video helped and assisted and nurtured. Until next time, peace.